we have a company called Harvesting Enterprises, where we help from kind of seed to harvest, starting with survivability to sustainability to scale up, all the way with strategic planning, operations, and exit. So I'm right now putting together a couple of deals, one in cybersecurity focused, in all different stages of the stack, with data protection, network security, operational technology security, and things like that. And also helping deals in green tech, biotech, clean tech. So those are kind of some of the areas I'm working with. Look forward to meeting some of you in person, and if there's anything I can do to help any of the members, happy to do that. Please reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. My last name Rao, first name Raghu, followed by S middle initial, Rao Raghu S on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Raghu. Yeah, and next we go to Lakshmi Muparthi, who's in finance and has been in insurance as well. And so, Lakshmi, are you there?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Lakshmi Muparthi. I have been working as a financial professional from last 6 years, and I started my career with New York Life. Now I have my own entity, which is LM Wealth Group LLC, and mostly my focus is on wealth management and estate planning, and I would be happy to help if anybody needs these services. And I'm happy to tie up with Thai because I happen to met so many great people. So, but unfortunately, because of Corona, we are not able to meet personally, but I'm looking forward for those really wonderful sessions where we can meet personally and introduce ourselves and have nice gatherings. Thank you, Ramanji and Neetu, for giving me this opportunity to introduce myself. I wish you all the very best to each and everyone here who are very successful. And I'm really looking forward for physical gatherings. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Lakshmi. And I think you speak for all of us. We're all looking forward to these in-person meetings. So thank you. And now we go to a new charter member, our newest charter member, Alain Van Loo. By the way, that's spelled A-L-A-I-N, yeah, Alain. And he's the Chief Investment Officer of the Sharp Financial Group. And Alain will tell us a little bit about what he does. So Alain, over to you.
Thank you, Raman. Appreciate it. And just for clarity, I am not at the Sharp Financial Group anymore. I started my own concern about 3 months ago called Ascetic. And that's a story in of itself. But effectively, first of all, thank you for giving me a few moments just to say hello to everybody. And as the proverbial new guy, I had the benefit of being part of Anyan's and Samir's meeting probably 3 weeks ago, and I just was very impressed with the level of the conversation, the folks that I got to meet. It was a very open group, and it was honestly a fait accompli to see if I could join. So thank you for that. Just a little bit about me and my background. Ascetic effectively is what I'm terming as advisory as a service. We provide services in the sense of from strategic advisory all the way through traditional sort of advisory M&A, capital raise, and then as well as finance and operations. And we're focused primarily in the middle market space, effectively trying to provide the services that a lot of companies would like to get but may not be able to afford. And we're doing it on a little bit of a smaller scale. So if it's, as Raghu had mentioned before, also very similar in the sense of from seed to, for us, it's usually some version of Series C or something along those lines. And then other larger companies that are just looking for cost efficiencies. Thank you so much.
Well, terrific. And thank you for correcting my introduction. Appreciate it.
Makes my background a little different, doesn't it?
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, so welcome. And, before we turn to the main program, I also want to welcome Sundi. from Washington, D.C. Sundi is the president-elect of Washington, D.C. And as you know, Washington is, the epicenter of for tech spending as well, because the government budgets always go up. They had a wonderful program on with the government contracting just a short while ago, a few days ago. And we hope to collaborate with you, Sundi, on an ongoing basis. We think there's a lot of synergy here. So thank you for joining us tonight, Sundi.
Yeah, absolutely, Raman. So I'm sorry, I'm not in front of the camera, but true partners. I think that's the reason why all the chapters, with the COVID and everything, pretty much all the Thai chapters are, pretty much the same. So how can we really collaborate and help each other out? And so that's really the spirit of partnering. And thanks a lot.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more excitement as a result of our partnership. And, so there is a flip side to this business of virtual meetings. That we are able to interact on a much wider basis. So I think it's going to be very exciting, both virtual and in person when it gets to that point. So thank you for joining us, Sundi. And with that, I will turn it over to Vijar.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. It looks like we have about 40 people signed up so far. Thank you, Raman, and everyone from the new members of the Thai community. It's been great to see everybody again. It's been tough to do virtual events, but I think we've done a great job of bringing everyone together. So without further delay, I will introduce our 3 industry experts to discuss the new trends in online shopping. We have Udayan Bose, Parag, Shah, and Ram Ganesan. These are relatively either new members, they've either met them in past events, but I'll do a quick intro for each of them, starting with Parag Shah, who's the Vice President at WAKEFERN Food Corporation. You guys know this if you're from New Jersey. They own all the shop rights. So he'll be discussing the opportunities and challenges the grocery divisions have seen this year during COVID, the pandemic, and the lockdowns. I think there's a lot in store for 2021. Uday and Ram have similar backgrounds, but I'll begin with Uday. He's the founder and CEO of NETELIXIR. They focus on marketing and are search marketing experts. So he'll speak a lot about Cyber 5, the Black Friday, and what's he's seen in the world of e-commerce. And then Ram will discuss as well digital commerce, how to build teams, and his experience in B2B and B2C customers, and what trends he's seen. He was the founder of Suryan Technologies, which is now part of ENCORA. So I'd like to welcome each of you. Maybe Parag, you could provide a little bit of background of what you're seeing. We can begin with some of the new trends of Black Friday, and then we'll circle to Uday and then Ram. And then we'll start off with a couple questions that I have in store. Any of the attendees, feel free to submit your questions in the chat or Q&A. Myself, Neetu, will try to flag them and answer them on the go. But we have a lot of questions. We'll try to answer everything. And welcome to the new trends in online shopping. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijar. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Vijar.
Thank you, Vijar.
So let's begin. Yeah, go ahead, Parag.
Okay, so thank you once again, Vijar and Raman and Neetu. I think this is a timely event with everything that's going on. And, COVID's been almost 9 months now. And since that, we have seen several holidays, but 2 big food holidays have happened, like, Easter and Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving was very different. And I know, Vijar, your question was more about Black Friday. And, Black Friday quintessential was very different than what we have seen. The store traffic was down significant. There was growth on online, but nowhere close to what was anticipated. And, that is an influence on the shopper behavior, how people are shopping. I was talking to Udayan just yesterday, and, people's habits have changed. They have are they waiting for more deals? We didn't see a lot of deals that popped up on Cyber Monday that like we would have thought. But I know organizations across the world really prepared for it based on what they had seen on initial days of the pandemic, right? And we did not see that. So I'm sure Udayan will share more highlights onto what happened with Cyber Monday and the trends beyond it. However, essentially, like when you look at it from a grocery perspective, the shopping habits have changed significantly. I'm going to give you guys a fun fact, like, over 40% of food consumption happened away from home. So, 4/10 of the meals were not consumed at home at all. So when you go into a lockdown phase where you have stay-at-home orders, depending on which community you are in or which area you are in, you're going to react to it. And when it all started, it started with fear. There was a lot of hoarding. Initially, certain categories were hit more so than others. And eventually that settled down into like a new normal. And that new normal was nothing like we had seen before. You're eating more at home, and first it's forced. But then when you adapt your life to the stay-at-home orders, you got to do something, right? Like you just can't like be miserable about it. So people started like, indulging, and, we started seeing growths in categories that were not necessarily the growth we saw in the initial days of the pandemic. And from there, it started shifting into an health and wellness portfolio. And we started an increase that, okay, now I'm going to be home. I've been scared. I have, satisfied my sweet cravings, but now I need to take care of myself. So what am I going to do? And
very well said. Very well said.
Yeah, within this three paradigm shifts, even though they are not paradigm shifts in short patterns, your behavior and interaction changed. Where you shopped, how you shopped. More older people who tend to be the primary grocery and food shoppers at home were more comfortable shopping in store, pivoted to online because they did not have choice. And those habits don't go away easily, right? This is a once in a generation life-changing event. However, the habits that we are going to form are going to stay way beyond after the event is over. So I think a lot of stickiness will continue to remain. Your behavior is going to still be different. How you shop, where you shop is going to be a lot different. And I know there was a lot of excitement early on in the conversation with the DoorDash IPO and what it's doing and $185, $186 closing, I guess. So that's great, but everybody's in online shopping now. I believe the one who has shown the most promise and who's doing the best is Walmart. And they have done very well. They have had a strategy, and they are going toe to toe against Amazon pretty well nationally. Now, it would not be fair for me to talk about WakeFERN, as I work there, but ShopRite is not a national player like Walmart and Amazon. We are very local. We are regional, over 300 stores, very focused in Northeast. And we started ShopRite from Home, our digital platform, believe it or not, in the year 2000. Before anybody started taking grocery seriously. One of the first companies who came online was netgrocer.com, who we happened to buy them out early on. But there was a struggle. But because of our early nature of engaging, we were more mature than other players with ShopRite from Home, which was great. But as habits started changing, our ability to satisfy the engagement, got challenged. So we also engaged with Instacart and DoorDash, and they're providing service. And we are seeing growths right now through ShopRite from Home to the tune of almost 75 to 95%. And, we are closing in at 10% of our business online. But when you talk about Instacart, the growth we are seeing is like 400%. It's just crazy. So that's the reason everybody's seeing like, 150%, 175% numbers of online increase. Now with that, having a 20-year background in the grocery industry, let me also put a caution up there. It's still projected to be 20% of the grocery business online in 5 years. The acceleration has got there in 5 years rather than 15 years, but still the store is not going away. It's still projected to have 80% of the business still stay there, right? So I know there's going to be a big change in the mall business and in hard goods. You're going to see a lot of change there, but in the food business, I do not see a tectonic shift. Grocers will have to adapt to the shopper behavior. The shoppers are going to be ahead of the businesses in this case. They're going to be demanding more. And that's what the businesses will have to invest in the future.
Got it. Excellent. Excellent. So, Ram, why don't you quickly talk about the change you've seen for Black Friday year over year? You could chime in, and then we'll talk about the pre and post changes during the pandemic and what we can expect going to 2021 afterwards.
Yeah, so Black Friday is not just Black Friday anymore, right? So it had already kind of shifted into Black Friday plus Cyber Monday, then Black Friday week, or an early start to Thanksgiving shopping on Thanksgiving Day, etc. I think we saw that shift this year to pretty much start from the Monday preceding Black Friday, and it continued for the whole Cyber Week, if you will. I think that was one thing. I think it was in anticipation of the fact that the store footfall and the doorbusters and all of that is going to be much, much lower. And to Parag's point, it did not compensate for the shortage in in-store sales. But what it also did was it influenced the overall shopper and retailer behavior to essentially induce more online participation and online discounting, etc. And it also affected the way, not just the use case was not just shipping, but there was also pickup in store, curbside delivery, enhancing the in-store experience by, pick up at store, a partial portion of the order, but the rest comes online, and so on and so forth, right? And some of the industries are seeing an absolute and complete and total disruption of that supply chain. For example, what we're seeing in restaurant business, right? Use cases like DoorDash is an obvious one, right? It was there before the pandemic. It made sense. So there's DoorDash, Postmates, whatever. But what we are working with, a couple of interesting clients we're working with, what they're doing is they're applying that same thing to just pick up or just in restaurant dining. But what they're saying is in restaurant, everything is on the app except for the food coming to your table. So finding my table, ordering my food, paying for it, modifying the order, etc., is all happening online. So things like that. So the use case for digital or the use case for online is dramatically being amplified by the pandemic and its corresponding shifts in how people are thinking or seeing digital. So what I see as the trend that is maybe manifesting in not just Black Friday, but through all of 2020 is it's literally go digital or die. It's not going to still replace your business, but if you do not have a very strong strategic push for digital, your business is going to get disrupted or it's going to not grow anymore, right? And if you don't grow, lack of growth is eventually death, right? So that's how I see it.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Ram. Go ahead.
So what I'll try to do is I'll probably try to digress a little bit and focus on about 5 themes which have become pretty interesting. And one of the things that I think Parag knows about me, I think I'm very, very fascinated with these themes and the consumer behavior and what changes and so on. And this is purely my personal hypothesis. I'm not really looking at any external research on this one. So the first one, I think, is I really sort of pull this entire concept of a negative somatic marker from Martin Lindstrom. So he says the pandemic is a negative somatic marker, so which is essentially going to really have such a big impression on our heads, it will sort of live through our entire lives, right? So the fundamental question is, how does the really pandemic affect and change you as a person? And as a result of which, many of your behaviors get changed because of it's such a big negative somatic marker as such. The second component, which I really wanted to sort of theme, which we are seeing very clearly in retail, we work with about 130 retailers currently in the US, and this is like the peak time. The second concept is this ushering in of the new to online shoppers. In the month of March, when I think both Ram as well as Parag have highlighted, once the entire pandemic started, we saw a big chunk of people who had never ever shopped online. And eMarketer projects about 7.5 million. Our projection is about 10 million new people who have never ever shopped online have come in, right? So if you really look at a classic adoption curve, you are really looking at these people who are probably at the tail end, right? These guys are sort of coming in. So now they have become almost like a mass majority as such. We are seeing their behaviors are completely different compared to the other folks who were almost like a digital shoppers earlier and through on, right? So what does it really mean for the marketer when you really have to market to maybe about 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 different personas, and how effectively can you do that? So that's, I think, the second theme I wanted to talk about. The third theme, which we are seeing very clearly, is the blending of the physical and the digital. So some people call it phygital and all that stuff. So essentially think of it almost like, can we really think about an always on retail? So there is no classification, compartmentalization in terms of physical, digital store and all that stuff. So at any point in time, if you really shift, and Amazon is sort of trying to do that, in 2000, I believe, 4 or 5, they had filed for a patent essentially on voice search, where essentially they have the capability of predicting what you will order next and sort of give it to you, right? So think of online shopping as more of an engagement area, which is always on in your life. So you don't really have to make a separate trip to a mall, or you don't really do something exceptional. It sort of is delivered at the speed of thought. So that's, I think, the future as well. The fourth thing, which I'm very fascinated with, and I'm seeing some great companies specifically, and I really have to highlight the companies in China in this one specifically, which seem to be way ahead of the US in terms of the adoption of what is called the extended reality, right? The AR, VR, the mixed sort of reality, this thing. And specifically the way that Alibaba and these companies are using really AR, VR. I think the more people spend their time at home, they are much more conversant using this media. And so-called the new media. I don't know whether it can be called new media any longer, but AR, VR becomes an essential part of life, right? Yeah. So you can't go into an IKEA store. You really want to see as to how the IKEA sofa would do in a place at your home, right? Can you really superimpose that? And can you really do it? And one of the announcements which I've been very fascinated with is during this Facebook Developer Summit this time, they have come up with an announcement where Facebook is partnering with Ray-Ban, right? Just think of it. What Google Glass did was, I think, a big mistake because they approached it from a tech perspective. Facebook approached it from a consumer perspective. And if they have tied up with Ray-Ban, so theoretically, I can really sort of just turn on my glasses and see as to how exactly it sort of get the information as well. And there is a lot of buzz in the industry that Apple may be doing the same thing with the iPhone next time as well. So that's, I think, the other theme I talk about. And the last theme which I wanted to talk about is this entire concept of safe supply chain. When I talk about safe supply chain, I mean, I remember the first 2-3 months, April, May, call it till about June, when something was delivered to our home, we took some time, sort of wiped it off with some people were still doing it, and then really opened it, right? So because there was obviously this thing, the negative somatic event which was playing on our minds, which forced us to do that. What does it really mean in terms of supply chain moving forward? So these are the 5 themes I really wanted to highlight, which I find to be pretty novel, and I'm pretty sure it will be evolving as well.
That was great, Udayan. I think that was very informative. I'm going to quickly touch about the social commerce, and then we're going to let Parag talk about some supply chain challenges. So I think if the attendees have missed this, social commerce and interactive selling is really popular in Asia, China, Japan. The ability to go on live events and do online sales like a QVC home shopping network is a very popular model to do e-commerce selling, and does very well with celebrities and great personalities. So this is a very popular model in the East. I think it's going to pick up in the West with TikTok and other social media platforms. But to pass it over to Parag, let's talk about the pre and post-pandemic challenges. You know, there were a lot of supply chain issues because people were rushing to the grocery stores. Today, DoorDash has gone public. It's a food delivery service. The economics have changed. Restaurants have really struggled in the last 6 months. The next 2 to 3 months in the East Coast will be a challenge for these restaurants in the cold. So what's going to happen, or what's happening right now? What's happened in the grocery department? What's happening? And what do you think will happen in 2021 for the consumers?
So, great question, Vijar. I'm going to approach it in two ways. One is the in-store and the other is online. And because both of them had their unique challenges. And like Ram said earlier, if you don't have growth, you are virtually dead, right? So if you really look at the food business, grocery business, over the last decade or so, we had become an experiential economy. People did not want to eat at home. It was about fun. It was a great thing going out. Cities were doing very well with restaurants and pop-up places, celebrity chefs, and the whole experience, right? The travel part of it. So the CPG business or the food grocery business was seeing moderate growth for the last, I would say, 2 decades. And when you're talking about an industry of this size and you're not having growth, what happens to your business model? You tend to get very efficient, means no additional capacity. So you are operating with just-in-time concepts and you are putting out 95, 98% efficiency. So there is no additional capacity within the system to scale up when a shock like a pandemic hits us, which none of us have seen, right? The last time something like this happened was 1918 and nobody was around for that. So the businesses had to react, and it took time for people to be able to do that. Some were better than others. People who were able to be faster at putting certain rules in place and how they are going to manage their entire supply chain came out better longer term. Additionally, to Ram's point earlier, the food supply chain got upended overnight because the food service business crashed when the lockdown orders happened. So the need for milk or the need for cream, as simple as cream, the cream that is sold in a supermarket is different than the cream that restaurants buy. You can't just replace that overnight. Okay, there is a whole science to be able to change your supply chain to support it. And then there was a whole meat shortage that happened that was largely driven not because of food shortages, but based on COVID-related issues at the plants where plants were shut down and no production was happening. So there was a period of time that you were in a state of shock. You didn't know what to do. And that's why you saw the shelves as empty as you did. And you came out of that by Memorial Day, I would say, give or take, for the most part. And then you are like, coasting along. But if the demand continues to be at the levels it is, the ability for supply to come back doesn't happen at the same rate as demand is continuing to be. Supply is going to come back over the next multiple years. Building certain plants take 2-3 years until that supply really happens. So, we're at a point where it has stabilized and we are able to meet the demands. But until the shift doesn't happen where people start going back to work, people start traveling, taking vacations, you're not going to see any relief of significance from where we are at this point of time. Okay, so that's the in-store perspective. From an online perspective, not only demand spiked, the way people shopped changed. You went from in-store to online. You were buying a lot more and you're buying online. Your technical capacity was just not there to really handle that kind of surge. We at ShopRite had to create waiting rooms. We just did not have slots to be able to meet the demand and be able to service it. And then something very non-technical happened. Even if you were able to overcome the technology part, there was not enough labor to select and ship the order. And unfortunately, that gets missed in the equation when you talk about online shopping. You know, when you talk about groceries, labor is such a huge component of the equation. And that's the reason food trails all other categories from going online. Your needs are different, your frequency is different, your variety is different. Okay. So I think that all played into it, but you know, we scaled up more rapidly than we did in the last 10 years. We created pop-up stores. You know, we started curbside pickups. I know a lot of other retailers have done, but those are reactions that are going to stay here for a long time. They're going to become permanent, and curbside pickup is not going away. It's going to stay here for a while. So hopefully I gave an perspective to it.
Yeah, I think you covered it. We'll come back to curbside pickup and then price branding. I'll mention that two things that Parag had talked about was both the demand shock and supply shock. You know, customers were running to the stores and grocery stores couldn't handle the demand. And then he mentioned something that most online retailers don't experience, but employees, labor shortages, that's a real problem in brick and mortar businesses. Ram, why don't you discuss what the online and offline, you mentioned this before, how combined retail is now the future of e-commerce. How, you know, before some businesses were doing this well, but right now everybody's online, but going into the second half of 2021, there has to be a mixed retail strategy, and you have to have a really good online and offline presence to really win both the foot traffic and the social traffic.
Yes, and definitely what we're seeing here is, that if you are a purely online business, you really benefited from this pandemic, if you will, right? While there was initial shock around the March-April timeframe, I think to Parag's point, Memorial Day, and we saw a couple of our clients, really benefit from this, right? They were in the food gifting business, so it became like a very nice go-to gift. It's a thoughtful product. It's a essential consumable, if you will, even though online food tends to be a little more expensive than what you can buy at the grocery store. But with that said, their businesses that shot through the roof, and the demand continues through Thanksgiving and Christmas as the second wave is rolling through, right? So they expected a normalization and all of that. And then we saw that similar kind of trend with some of our clients in the consumer durable space as well as consumer electronic space, right? People also wanted to buy straight from the source. So we saw a lot of these FMCGs and CPG type of companies putting up online stores of themselves. Normally they would just be educational sites or information only type of sites. They started going significantly online direct to consumer, to some extent cannibalizing their supply chain, right? So, if I'm, for example, a hair products manufacturer, and usually I'll find it at the local departmental store or at Walmart or whatever, now I'm going direct to consumer at the same price, maybe sometimes. And maybe I'm offering some exclusive combos or bundles of products. So, all those shifts are happening. And then back to the phygital theme that Udayan discussed, right? I think this is a term that we've seen talked about maybe 10 years ago, but we're really seeing that coming to life with use cases like curbside pickup, like in restaurant dining, but you can only order through the app and things like that, right? Like, so normally you would only think of either online or offline, and the whole manifestation of that was what we called as omni-channel retail. But now I think there should be a new term, call it whatever, right? Hyper channel or whatever else, right? There is this intersection of all of these use cases, and some of these use cases have not even come out, right? I mean, the one that I keep going back to is this restaurant use case, because when this client came to us, I said that what's so different? There's DoorDash, there's Uber Eats, and everybody else. He says, no, but you're missing one particular point. People are going to start going back to restaurants, but they don't want to see the waiter. They don't want to be taken to their table. They don't want the hostess to sit close to them or whatever. They want just the food to come to them, and everything else is digital. So things like that are starting to manifest. I'm pretty sure, if you're shopping at Home Depot, I do a lot of my grocery store shopping in person, but I use the app now, and I scan my own products and I put it into cart, and then all I go is go to the cash register and pay, and I'm out of there. So I'm consciously reducing that in-person interaction, even though I'm in store. One example is of an emerging startup in Omaha, which is working with the Omaha Chamber of Commerce, which is actually, I think somebody asked a question about how are they helping small businesses. So the Omaha Chamber of Commerce has collaborated with this online payment or online shopping startup. It's still in the early seed stage, but basically what they're doing is the business is called Sidestep, and they essentially sidestep the cash register. They sidestep the line. The whole idea is that you're going directly to the store and buying, but you don't need to do the traditional things that you need to do, that where you have to queue at the cash register and you have to pay and some other things. And this gives you unique opportunities to even upsell and cross-sell. So if I put diapers in my cart, you can immediately say, hey, we're running a special on wipes, right? Yeah. And so on and so forth, which you could not do in the past because you had these end caps and the traditional merchandising solutions in place. So you can do that with the digital, and you can literally follow the customer as they're shopping in the store. And these kind of use cases is what we will see adapt and grow. Another trend that we're also seeing is B2B, I think, which I think is still the tip of the iceberg when it comes to online. It's just because of entrenched legacy systems, much more complex approval processes and payment processes, etc. POs need to be issued, etc. Now, because your traditional road warrior salesperson cannot come to you, give you your form, you cannot, receive it by fax, if you will. All of that is being forced to go online. So so we're working with one chemical firm that is stitching together complex B2B marketplaces, right? So you're talking about pharmaceutical raw materials, complex filtration machinery, etc., now being stitched together from multiple supply chain vendors by this manufacturer, aggregator, distributor, and then being shipped. And that whole process is now going online. So we'll see an acceleration of that kind of adoption as well.
Got it. Perfect. I love that the cashierless trend is picking up. Walmart Pay, Target apps, those are really popular ways. And I think it's the right way. You can shift the employee labor to other parts of the supply chain, and it just makes it a better customer experience. So I'm going to start picking up some of the Q&A chat questions. So you mentioned some topic last week about Cyber 5 and how the holiday season has shifted. Arun Shroff has mentioned something about how you said there's 7.5 million new customers. Can you talk about how the behavior has changed this quarter, and what are the challenges the online retailers are facing now?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, Arun. I think 7.5 million customers were predicted, by e-marketers for the entire year. The interesting part is many of these customers, once they sort of cross the initial threshold, which is starting to buy online, they did not stop. So we call it the golden segment. And this segment of customers, essentially, if you really look at the average order value, is substantially higher, about 25% higher compared to the regular customer. And if you really look at as to what typically the lifetime value was, in about 2 months, they were able to do as much as the lifetime value of a regular new customer for any business. So this was a very interesting segment and a unique segment. So there was a lot of apprehension, as Parag mentioned, till Memorial Day. After that, slowly people started getting back to the store and so on. We saw about 8% of this brand new customers did not go back at all, right? We saw about 23% who sort of tried to blend both on this, the physical purchases and this one. So net, I think 23 plus 8 is about 31% who are continuing to engage online. Now, what happened during this Black Friday was, again, this really coincided, unfortunately, with a lot of the COVID cases rising and so on, and people understandably, again, they remember the negative somatic market, that impact sort of just came back at you. So we saw that they shifted their purchases a lot from offline to online. And these guys put a lot. So whatever numbers that you have, we are seeing some pretty strong numbers. In fact, I had mentioned at the end of Cyber 5 that Cyber 5 was probably one of the most, let us say, tepid Cyber 5s that we have seen in terms of year-on-year growth. But I was amazed. Actually, I was sort of speaking to someone at press just before this meeting. And the last 7 days actually have been exceptionally strong. So last 7 days, or the first 7 days of December or 8 days of December, we have seen 60% year-on-year growth, which is incredible, right? Now think from a merchant's perspective or a retailer's perspective, who wants to market or advertise, right? When you are putting your advertising dollars, you're not getting as much sales. When you are not sort of planning as much, you're getting sales, right? So the uncertainty has been insane, absolutely crazy. So people have to really move on the fly and very quickly. So we saw that a big part of the driver was this new to online consumers who were really investing and over-investing during this post-Cyber 5 time as well. During Cyber 5, we saw a lot of folks who had been regular online, let us say, buyers. They made the purchases, but these new folks, new to online, did not really get lured in as much as the normal people do as well. And also you have to factor in certain categories like apparel. I saw that another question on apparel as well. Those categories have been pretty flat in terms of sales, just because people are not really going out much and so on and so forth. So three specific indicators. One is these guys spend a lot more, the new online consumer. The second part is now they have broken the initial threshold, that barrier which prevented them from shopping online, that is broken. So now they are purchasing multiple times. So I think that's the second part. And the third component is, I mean, they are slowly shifting more and more of their physical retail purchases onto online, which should definitely be a very concerning note for a lot of physical retailers as such. Yeah.
Got it. Excellent. So Parag, can you talk about now the 2021 groceries like costs? Are they going to rise? Are they going to decrease? Maybe what's changed in shopping trends? I have to imagine a lot of floor space or way they do curbside delivery is going to maybe change how you're going to sell certain products. What's the impact in the grocery landscape now going forward?
Yeah, we are going to see a lot of change for several years, not only next year. And some of it we already started seeing. You know, there's going to be a blending of this online and physical happen more than less. You know, a few weeks ago, you all might have heard about Ulta opening up stores in Target. And my take is, you know, they're doing it to ensure that the foot traffic coming into Target gets to engage with their brand, because prior to that, their primary engagement was the mall, and the future of the mall is uncertain. So I think it's a brilliant move on both their parts to really do that and create another reason for the customer to come to the store or to engage with the retailer, even if it's online within that space, right? I think we are going to see a lot more of those type of innovations. You're also going to continue to see a lot of DTC brands engage with retailers, and Ram mentioned some of it earlier, you know, but you see Casper, which was purely DTC engaging in retail. You see Harry's, which disrupted the shave market, now engage in retail. And the reason is they're going from that initial, you know, creation, but also having this steady footfall that comes to the physical store, at least at a grocery store, and be able to engage them and growth. So you'll see a lot of that partnership that will evolve and happen, because when you see a typical store layout, you don't need to have Cheerios and Bounty and Pampers in visibility in the future when you're going to see a blended of online and in-store, right? So what do you do with that space? You convert it to experiences. And these are some of the examples of experiences, right? Yeah. You know, the store is going to physically shift in the back room where you can't see your mundane purchases, and the store space is going to get converted to where you want to engage. You know, will there be pop-up craft beer places for you to go and hang out? Maybe, you know, but, you know, that experience is going to evolve. And from a grocery perspective, it has to be seamless online as well as in store. You'll have to be able to let it flow through. Any barriers will create friction which creates customer dissatisfaction to engage with you.
Right.
So you're going to see a lot more of evolution in that space, in my opinion.
Got it. And then
I
what
think
about
the physical and digital experience, the combination of that, I think just to kind of complement what Parag just said, and Udayan also mentioned it before, extended reality, right? So you can have a portion of the store where, maybe people have to put on virtual reality headsets and experience a different new product line and things like that. One of the things that we've seen an uptick in demand for is moving all this in-class training to something that is more gamified, using either a VR headset if you're a little more, ready to invest a little more money, and then you ship these VR headsets fully pre-packaged. It just comes to you, you use it for a week, and then you ship it back. Or the easy ones are the AR experiences that you can do on your phone or your tablet, etc. But I think Parag's point is about the experiences, be that digital or physical. I think what's going to happen is a lot of that commercial real estate is going to get repurposed to create the experiences and really, I would say, extend the value of the product or educate people about products.
Yeah, I agree. Ram, can you then mention the digital real estate? What have you been seeing for marketing, retargeting? Some questions have been about creating new content and then retargeting. They feel free to talk about search as well and other. How are people changing their ad spend, and how effective is it?
So obviously, traditional TV and radio is definitely on the downtrend, and I think if anything, it's been accelerated because the engagement is happening online, and it's not just the pandemic. I think that's been one of the catalysts, but then also the newer generation engaging in bite-sized manners, right? So TikTok is the perfect example, and then all the prevalent social media platforms are getting more and more interactive, right? Instagram is getting there. All of the Asian social networks already are heavily interactive, both on the financial side as well as on the shopping side. So you'll see that kind of influence that. But I think the breaking news today, which remains to be seen in terms of what it is, right? What will the breakup of Facebook do to this whole social market, right? Is that going to happen, first of all? And if it happens, does that mean that the market becomes more competitive, which I think is something that we're all looking for? But clearly there has been a democratization of ad spend, which was monopolized by the large corporates with the large TV channels or the broadcast networks. Now, a common mom and pop shop can advertise to a micro audience in their local hometown and be able to compete with the large restaurant or grocery chains or whatever else, right? So I think it opens up a unique opportunity for small businesses to be relevant and stay in business in a differentiated manner, but also take advantage of all the latest frills of technology, be that social media marketing, e-commerce, curbside pickup, and all of those other things. They can provide that same level of exceptional service that Amazon can provide for a fraction of the cost.
Got it.
I'll just sort of add on to what Ram is mentioning, slightly again, different themes. I will not really get into the SEO, etc., because it becomes a little too technical and boring for most people, I guess. But I just want to get into three themes, which I think it will be important for people to understand. The first is a pretty big theme. I was talking to Parag yesterday. So what we are talking about is a complex adaptive system. A complex adaptive system is different from an adaptive system because the predictability is very low, right? So basically, you're not really going into a cyclical fashion. You are really sort of just going around in a way which is difficult to predict. So as a result of which, there is a very clear value migration happening from a product-centric approach to a network-centric approach. How do you really sort of just adapt to this complex adaptive system? You really do it by moving from being a product company to more of a network-driven approach in terms of strength. You sort of essentially create value through network. That's, I think, the one part. It's very important to keep in mind, essentially looking. So again, as to what is the partnership ecosystem, so what Parag was mentioning about whether it is Sephora entering into a deal with Kohl's or Ulta entering into a deal with Target, I mean, a very, very similar concept. That's going to increase the sort of time. The second component is understanding the importance of going local. I think sort of Ram touched upon it just now. I think we see a lot more localization driven through mobile plus, let us say, extended reality. I'm a big fan, as you can understand probably by now. We sort of just get in. So think of can we really make local retail as much fun as Pokemon Go?
Yeah.
Probably yes, right? And suddenly you're talking about the gamification, the entire virtual reality and all that stuff that is just coming in. So that's the second part, the experiential part of local. And the third component, which is very interesting, the concept of micro-influencers. And recently there was a very interesting article. I don't know if someone has read of that. Singles Day is the biggest shopping day in China. And Alibaba, I have really sort of had tip to the company because they always come up with some new crazy things. So essentially this time they were using their micro-influencer network. Micro-influencers are people who essentially are very active socially in spreading your news. They use them as broadcasting agents. Mm-hmm. So think of if you have 1 million broadcasting stations broadcasting the entire thing live, yep. Right? So live streaming broadcasted by micro-influencers, each one of them probably have about 1 million users. So we are talking about the scope, the network effect in full play. And that can really disrupt. And how do you really even compete with that, right? If you have 1 million who are transmitting this to 1 million other people, I mean, you're talking about a different sort of a number. So that would be my key point. I think where the American business, some of the companies obviously are very good at that, Amazon, Facebook, and so on. But other companies still need to understand the entire concept of scale when it comes to online, which I think the Chinese company, I'm really a big fan of the technology as to how they do this. But they really think differently to really address this at scale. So these three again are the concepts which I think are pretty interesting. Something that any marketer should keep in mind as well.
Got it. Great advice. So we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. If anybody has more questions, feel free to submit it in the chat box. We'll try to answer them after the event. We'll send it over to the speakers and everyone else. So I'm going to wrap up with one final question, that if you were starting your career today, or you were starting a business and you had to bet on a new trend for 2021, whether it's a new product, a single product, or marketing channel, what would be your edge? What would you select? How would you differentiate yourself going into next year so that you could capitalize on the online shopping trend? We could start with you. You listed off quite a few, but if you could choose one area that you think was really undervalued today, that'd be great.
I think mine probably is the easiest one. I'm stealing, I know, but given that DoorDash is so new and so hot in topic, the concept of asset-free retail, I think, is a very interesting concept, right? Why do I need to have the inventory? Why do I need to produce anything, have anything, etc., right? When I can really have such a huge value, $30 billion, right? That's what you said, Parag. I believe that's the valuation of DoorDash now, without really having any assets, theoretically, physical inventory, carrying stock, etc. So asset-free retail can be a very interesting concept. And that's something which I would really bet on.
Got it. So drop shipping for people, I think it's similar to drop shipping, right?
It can be anything. I mean, we are talking about why not think
marketplaces,
yeah, exactly.
Quite a few of those. Yeah.
So why do you have to have warehouses in different locations? Why can't it be a portable, movable warehouse?
Right. Got it.
Challenging everything possible, right?
Got it. Ram.
These real estates have gotten empty. So how can you really use all these real estate to make warehouses everywhere?
Yeah, I think malls are a really good example of that. They're empty warehouses. Ram, what would you bet on? What would be the trend that you would bet on for next year?
Yeah, before I start, I just wanted to thank Neetu, Vijar, and Raman for inviting me to this panel, and it's been a pleasure to interact with Udayan and Parag and everybody here. My bet would be on the small guy. Okay, I think what's happening in India right now with Jio and all of that, even though it's being kind of bankrolled by a large company, I think the local businesses, whether that's a local restaurant, bookstore, a small, a specialty apparel store, they've all responded to this challenge, supported by PPP and other things initially, but, it's been a suboptimal response overall, right? So they had to really find ways to innovate, and they have gone digital in a big way. And I think it has validated or actually helped them kind of circumvent that fear that I'm too small to go online. I'm too small to do digital stuff. So people like from the local hairdresser, they're using Facebook ads, they're using small video snippets and everything. They're finding very economical ways to digitally market and digitally sell and digitally fulfill with curbside pickup or local delivery and white glove delivery and whatever else. So I think that if I'm an entrepreneur starting afresh, I would do something to enable that local digital ecosystem, be that on the marketing side, be that on the commerce side, be that on the fulfillment side. That's the way to go. And I think you'll see some billion-dollar businesses coming out of those use cases.
Agreed. I think localized leadership for your niche is your competitive moat. It's a monopoly, a micro monopoly. So I think it's great. How about yourself, Parag?
Yeah, I'm going to bet on experiences. It's going to be less about the product. And let's take as a brand manager, if you're in the business of making cake mixes, you're not going to be selling cake mixes in the future. You're going to be selling the experience that comes with buying your product and how you engage with your family or whoever you want to share with it. I think that's going to evolve. People are going to want more of it from the brands and the products. And we'll just have to figure out. And there are some brands doing it a lot better than others, but we are going to see a lot of innovation in that space.
Got it. So there we have it. Thank you, Ram, Uday, and Parag. I think we covered quite a bit from micro influencers to experiences, curbside pickup, and obviously the hottest IPO today. I think this was really informative. There are a lot of questions still left in the Q&A, so I think we'll organize a couple of them and send them off later. I think I learned quite a bit about the trends from this year. And definitely preparing myself for next year. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to hand it off to Raman next to end off this event. I think this was terrific. He'll talk about next year's events and what else we have planned for 2021.
Thank you, Vijay, Raman, Neetu, and everyone for having us. And it's an absolute privilege, Ram, to sort of meet you virtually.
Absolutely.
And Parag to be there again. I mean, we sort of keep on this probably, I think.
No, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Vijay.
Hey, I want to add my word of gratitude to Udayan and Ram and Parag. I mean, that was just terrific. You mentioned, Parag, about life-changing events that'll have an impact on life. After all the present pandemic stuff is over, and, that really struck a chord with me. I also like the concept, Ram, of being hyper digital. Then democratization of stores. I think also the power shift that will go to the consumer as a result of this democratization is interesting, and I like the going product centric to network centric and the focus on experience. That you mentioned, Parag, rather than product. So, I mean, this was really terrific. Very exciting. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are interested in marketing, there's a very interesting book by Raja Ramanyar, Chief Marketing Officer of MasterCharge, which basically covers the items that Udayan, Ram, and Parag covered tonight. And I interview him at 9:30 tonight. It'll be on IAAC channel, Facebook, and YouTube. So in case you're interested in marketing, that will be a terrific thing for you to attempt. I want to encourage those of you who are not members to become members. Yeah. We have some exciting programs coming up in 2021. I will send out an email letter to update you on where we've been this year and where we are headed. So I look forward to all of you joining up who are not yet charter members or general members. So thank you again, Vijay, Udayan, Ram, Parag, and Neetu for organizing all of this. Thank you. And
thank you.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.